Welcome back. It's Mr. John from John's Online Education. Today we'll be looking at approximations. Now there are three forms of approximations. So three types of approximations, which includes and is limited to decimal places, significant figures, and nearest whole. So these three are the three types of approximation that is found within CXC. For the purpose of today's video, we'll be looking at decimal places as well as significant figure. Take for example 53 and 124,000. I want you to notice that this point is called a decimal point. This point is called a decimal point. Now, the decimal point tells us that any number to the right of that decimal point is called a decimal place. Right, that's a decimal place. So if I was to ask you how many decimal places that this number has, there would be 3 decimal places. As you can see, 1, 2, and 3. 3 figures, 3 numbers after the decimal point. And this is how we count decimal places. So take for example, how many decimal places does 7.2 has? You are correct if you had said 1. 7.2 have 1 decimal place. When trying to approximate something, let's say we are trying to approximate to 2 decimal places, right? If the instruction says to approximate to 2 decimal places, you need to inspect the third decimal place. So let's use 53 and 124,000 as an example. They ask us for 2 decimal places, therefore we need to inspect 3 decimal places. So the first decimal place would be 1, the second decimal place would ironically be 2, and since as they ask us for 2, we need to then inspect the third decimal place. So the third decimal place would be the 4, and now if it's 5 and more, you need to add 1 next door. But in this case, it's 5 and less, so therefore you need to let it rest. So once it's less than 5, let it rest. what that is going to look like is 53.124 to two decimal places would just be 12. But since this 4 is less than 5, you let it rest. And you do so by simply removing it. That would be now to two decimal places. So any amount they ask you for to find, you need to inspect one more than it. All right, so let's use another example. Take 53.475, and let's say I want you to approximate this to two decimal places, right? We located decimal point. Now that we would have located the decimal point, we know any numbers to the right of that is our decimal places. So our first decimal place would be the 4, the second would be the 7th. And since as they ask us for two decimal places, we need to look to the third, and this would be the 5. Since it's 5 or more, we need to add 1 to the left. So 5 and more, add 1 to the left. So that's going to be 53.48. And the two decimal places. One more example. You have 63.173, and I want you to approximate this to one decimal place. Now pause the video and try to attempt this on your own. Okay, that should be enough time. So to one decimal place, this would be 67.173. We locate our decimal point, and our first decimal place would be the 1. So since as they ask us for one decimal place, we need to inspect the second. And since as it's 7, which is more than 5, you need to add a 1 to the left. So this is going to be written as 67.2. Again, to one decimal place. One more. Approximate this to two decimal place. Now this may look different, it may look scary, but it isn't. Same procedure. Locate your decimal point first, right? And then since as they ask us for two decimal places, we need to inspect three decimal places, the third decimal value. Let's go. That would be 1. This would be the first decimal place. The 6 would be the second, and the 3 would be the third. Since as they ask us for 2, we need to figure out if this is less than 5 or more than 5. If it's less than 5, then we let it rest. If it's more than 5, then we add 1 to the left. Well, 3 is less than 5, so we have to let it rest. So now we're going to get rid of it, and this would just leave 0.06, right? So I'm going to write it below. That's going to be 0.06, and you could then count it to decimal place, and you could count it So here's our decimal point. Then to the right of the decimal point, to the immediate right of the decimal point would be our first decimal place, and then thereafter would be our second. So as you can see, we have 2 decimal places, which is correct. And that was decimal place. I hope you would have find this portion useful to you, this pattern approximation. Next up, we have significant figures. So let's say we're given 0.00497, right? It was given this figure. Now, with significant figures, SF for short, what we do is, and in maths in general, we read from left to right. And something important with significant figures is that your first significant figure is a non-zero digit number. You can locate the decimal point right here. Is this our first significant figure? No. Our first significant figure must be a non-zero digit number. So in this case, 4 would be our first significant figure. Now, if 4 is our first significant figure, then the 9 would be our second, and the 7th would be our third, so on and so forth. Now, if, hypothetically speaking, if it had a 0 here, then that would make it our fourth significant figure, and so on and so forth. But for the purpose of this example, let's say I want you to approximate this to, let's say to 2 significant figures. That's 2 significant figures. So we already found our first significant figure, which is the 4. Our second would be the 9. And since as they ask us for 2 significant figures, we know we need to inspect. Same, very similar to the decimal place we would have done. So now you need to inspect the third significant figure. And again, is very similar. So since as our third is 7, we need to add 1 to the left. But since as this is 9, this 9 will turn into 10. The 0 would come down here, and the 1 gets passed to the 4, or get added to the 4, I should say. So let's rewrite back what we would have had. 4 plus 1, that would be 5, and the 9 took the place of a 0, and this would be our answer. And this would be our answer. That is to 2 significant figures. Let's look at some more examples. If they want us to approximate to 1 significant figure, then we need to inspect to the second significant figure. Hopefully it's going to get the drift of this. Remember, with significant figures, the first non-zero digit number would be your first significant figure. So therefore, the 3 is our first significant figure, right? Then would be the 6, which is the one we have to inspect. Since as asked us for 1, we need to look 1 more. So we need to inspect the second significant figure, which in this case is a 6. Since as is 5 and more, then you know you need to add 1 to the left. 1 would be 4, and any subsequent digits or numbers will be turned into 0. Right? Will be turned into 0. So 362 to one significant figure would be this here.